Tonight, 52 tons of meth seized in the largest cartel bust in Texas history.
At 4:32 a.m. Laredo, Texas, the sky was ink black, the kind of darkness that swallows headlights and hides intentions. A thin layer of fog hugged the asphalt near the border crossing, rolling in from the Rio Grande like a slow warning no one was listening to. The only sound was the distant hum of 18-wheelers idling at the commercial checkpoint, waiting for dawn inspections that would never come the way they expected. At that exact moment, 1,200 federal agents were already in position. DEA tactical units had staged in abandoned warehouse lots. FBI SWAT teams sat in unmarked vans with their engines cold. ICE enforcement officers waited at secondary locations, their radios crackling with encrypted updates. DHS surveillance drones circled overhead at 20,000 feet, got their thermal cameras painting heat signatures across a digital grid that stretched from Laredo to Houston to San Antonio and beyond. This wasn't a routine bust. This was Operation Sunfall. Named for the moment the cartel's empire would finally see daylight. The primary target was a sprawling logistics hub on the outskirts of Laredo, a place the locals called the Crossroads Depot. On paper, it was owned by a company named Lone Prairie Distribute, a mid-tier freight handler specializing in refrigerated transport. They moved produce, dairy, frozen goods. They held contracts with grocery chains across the Southwest. Their trucks rolled through weigh stations with perfect manifests and spotless inspection records. But federal analysts had been watching Lone Prairie for 19 months, and what they saw didn't add up. The trucks ran too often, the routes were too long, the fuel costs were too high for the margins they reported. And every single time a major fentanyl seizure happened along the I-35 corridor, a Lone Prairie rig had passed through the same checkpoint within 48 hours. Coincidence stops being coincidence after the 7th time. By the 14th, it becomes a pattern. By the 30th, it becomes infrastructure. At 4:33 a.m., the green light flashed. The first breach happened at the Crossroads Depot's main gate. A ballistic ram mounted on an armored Bearcat smashed through the chain-link fence like it was made of paper. Flashbang grenades detonated in rapid succession, turning the pre-dawn silence into a strobe-lit nightmare. Agents in black tactical gear poured through the gap, their boots hitting gravel in perfect synchronization. Like inside the depot, workers scrambled. Some dropped clipboards and ran. Others froze in place, their hands already rising before anyone shouted the command. But a handful of men near the loading docks didn't freeze. They bolted toward a row of idling refrigerated trailers, their movements too coordinated to be panicked. They didn't make it. DEA agents intercepted them before they reached the first trailer. One man tried to toss a duffel bag into an open cab. An agent tackled him the bag split open on the concrete, and hundreds of vacuum-sealed packets spilled across the ground. White powder, crystal shard, the unmistakable geometry of methamphetamine. But that was just the appetizer. The real discovery came when forensic teams reached the back of the depot, past the rows of legitimate produce and the pallets of frozen chicken. And there, hidden behind a false wall disguised as a maintenance closet, they found a staircase leading down. Beneath the depot sat a subterranean processing facility, not a tunnel, not a stash house, a full-scale drug superlab, buried 30 feet underground. The air was thick with chemical residue. Industrial ventilation fans hummed from the ceiling. Stainless steel tables stretched in rows, each one covered with beakers, heating element, and precursor chemical. Along the far wall, agents found shrink-wrapped bricks of methamphetamine stacked floor to ceiling. 47 tons of product, ready for distribution. 5 more tons were found in the trailers above. 52 tons total. Street value, over $3.8 billion. But the drugs weren't the most disturbing thing they found. In a locked office at the back of the lab, agents discovered 3 industrial-grade servers, still running. The screens displayed real-time GPS tracking of over 200 freight vehicles scattered across 12 states. Each truck was color-coded, green for clean loads, yellow for mixed cargo, red for priority shipment. Priority shipment. That was the cartel's term for trucks carrying nothing but poison. The servers also contained encrypted communication log, financial records, and a single folder labeled Oversight. Inside that folder were the names of 31 public officials who had received payments from Lone Prairie Distribution over the past decade. This wasn't corruption, this was command-level collusion. And at the top of that list was a name that made federal agents pause: Governor Marcus Delane. Fictional, yes, but the role he played was terrifying. Delane had served as governor of Texas for 6 years. He ran on a platform of border security and economic revitalization. He gave speeches about cracking down on cartels. He signed legislation prosecution, increasing penalties for drug trafficking. And behind closed doors, according to the seized files, he had been receiving monthly payments of $2.4 million through a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. The payments were coded as consulting fees for a firm called Rio Horizon Advisors. That firm existed only on paper. Its sole function was to launder money from Lone Prairie Distribution directly into accounts controlled by Delane's family trust. But it got worse. Analysts cross-referenced the payment dates with state policy decisions. Every time a major enforcement initiative was announced, it targeted rival operations, but never Lone Prairie. Every time a border checkpoint received upgraded scanning equipment, Lone Prairie's routes were quietly exempted from the new protocols. Every time a whistleblower filed a complaint about suspicious freight activity, the complaint was transferred to a department overseen by an appointee Delane had personally installed. The cartel hadn't just bribed a governor, they had installed one, and Delane wasn't alone. The oversight folder contained documentation linking payments to 14 state legislators, 6 county judges, 3 Port Authority directors, and 8 senior officers within Texas law enforcement, including a deputy chief of the State Highway Patrol and a regional ICE supervisor. This was a parallel government, a shadow administration designed to protect one thing: the uninterrupted flow of methamphetamine, marsh fentanyl, and human cargo from Mexico into the American heartland. The cartel behind it all was the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, known by its Spanish acronym CJNG, one of the most violent and sophisticated criminal organizations on the planet. They had spent years building relationships with corrupt officials along the Texas border. But what Operation Sunfall revealed was something far more ambitious. CJNG hadn't just infiltrated Texas. They had turned it into their North American headquarters. By 6:15 a.m., the scope of Operation Sunfall expanded beyond anyone's original projections. At a secure command center inside Lackland Air Force Base, a digital map of Texas glowed on a massive screen. Red markers pulsed across the display, each one representing a confirmed cartel asset. There were 47 of them: warehouses and distribution points, stash houses, legitimate businesses operating as fronts. And beneath the map, a second layer showed something even more disturbing: tunnel networks. Federal geologists had used ground-penetrating radar to identify 7 subterranean passages connecting properties in Laredo, McAllen, and Brownsville to locations across the Mexican border. These weren't crude smuggling tunnels. They were engineered corridors, reinforced with concrete, equipped with rail systems and lighting, capable of moving 10 tons of product per week without ever touching a checkpoint. The longest tunnel stretched 2,100 feet, emerging inside a commercial garage in Reynosa, Mexico. The shortest was 800 feet, connecting a tire shop in Brownsville to a vacant lot on the other side. Each tunnel had been operational for at least 5 years. Each one had moved enough fentanyl to kill millions. At 6:30 a.m., the second phase of Operation Sunfall commenced. Black Hawk helicopters lifted off from staging areas across South Texas. Armored convoys rolled out from San Antonio and Houston. In total, over 1,500 federal agents participated in the coordinated strike, supported by 400 state troopers and 200 National Guard personnel. The targets were everywhere. In McAllen, SWAT teams breached a cartel-controlled nightclub that doubled as a cash processing center. Inside, they found $34 million in bundled currency, stacked in industrial freezers behind the bar. In Houston, DEA agents raided a chain of auto body shops that had been modifying vehicles with hidden compartments. 31 cars were seized, each one capable of carrying up to 50 kilograms of narcotics. In San Antonio, FBI cyber specialists took control of a data center operating inside a strip mall. The servers contained customer lists for fentanyl distribution networks spanning 23 states. In Brownsville, ICE agents discovered a human trafficking transit house disguised as a migrant shelter. 47 people were found inside, including 12 unaccompanied minors. They had been promised safe passage to the United States. Instead, they were being held as collateral for smuggling debts. By noon, the numbers were staggering: 52 tons of methamphetamine, 2.1 million fentanyl pills, 1,400 kilograms of cocaine, $89 million in cash, 312 firearms, including military-grade automatic weapons, and 247 individuals in federal custody, not including 19 who held positions of public trust. The cartel's Texas operation had taken a decade to build. It took 6 hours to dismantle, but the work wasn't finished. Inside the FBI's regional cyber forensics lab, analysts were still decrypting files from the Crossroads Depot servers. What they found painted a picture of corruption so deep that even veteran investigators struggled to process it. The files showed that CJNG had spent years cultivating relationships with law enforcement at every level. Patrol officers were paid to ignore specific license plates. Dispatchers were bribed to delay response times in certain areas. Border agents were given monthly bonuses to wave through designated vehicle. But the most chilling revelation involved internal raid schedule. The cartel had access to DEA operational planning documents. They knew which warehouses were under surveillance. They knew which informants were providing intelligence. They knew when enforcement sweeps were scheduled and which routes would be left unguarded. Someone inside federal law enforcement had been feeding them information for years. The leak was traced to a supervisory agent within the DEA's Houston field office. His name doesn't matter. What matters is that he had been on CJNG's payroll since 2019, receiving payments through cryptocurrency accounts that were nearly impossible to trace. When agents arrived at his home to arrest him, he was already gone. His car was found abandoned near the Mexican border 3 days later. He has not been seen since. The betrayal cut deep. Agents who had trusted him with their lives now questioned every operation he had touched. Cases were reopened, and convictions were reviewed. The damage to morale was incalculable, but the betrayal also revealed something important. The cartel's success wasn't built on superior firepower or better technology. It was built on trust. They found people willing to sell their integrity for money, and they exploited that weakness with surgical precision. As one senior FBI official put it during a classified briefing, "They didn't outgun us. They outbought us." The human cost of Operation Sunfall cannot be measured in tons of drugs or millions of dollars. Between 2018 and 2024, the regions served by Lone Prairie Distribution's trucking routes experienced a 340% increase in methamphetamine-related overdose deaths. In some rural Texas counties, meth overdoses became the leading cause of death for adults under 40. Fentanyl was even worse. None of the 2.1 million pills seized during Operation Sunfall represented enough lethal doses to kill every resident of Houston twice over, and those were just the pills that didn't make it to the streets. Analysts estimate that the network moved approximately 15 million fentanyl pills per year for at least 4 years. That's 60 million pills. At an average lethality rate, that's enough to cause hundreds of thousands of deaths. The faces behind those numbers haunt the agents who worked this case. A 17-year-old in Amarillo who took half a pill at a party and never woke up. A single mother in Fort Worth who crushed a pill into her coffee, thinking it was a painkiller, and left 2 children orphaned. A Vietnam veteran in El Paso who survived combat only to die in his own living room from a dose he didn't know was poison. But these weren't statistics. They were people, and the network that killed them operated for a decade under the protection of officials who swore an oath to serve the public. In the weeks following Operation Sunfall, federal prosecutors filed charges against 247 individuals. 19 of them were public officials. Governor Marcus Delane was indicted on 114 counts, including racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, and obstruction of justice. He denied all charges. He called the investigation a political hit job. He claimed the evidence was fabricated. Then the FBI released the wire transfer, encrypted messages, the photographs of Delane meeting with known CJNG operatives at a private ranch in Nuevo Leon. His approval rating dropped 40 points in a single week, but his own party called for his resignation. 3 days later, he was taken into federal custody during a routine court appearance. He is currently awaiting trial in a maximum security facility. 14 state legislators have been charged. 6 have pleaded guilty. The remaining 8 are fighting extradition from various locations across the Americas. The deputy chief of the Texas Highway Patrol was arrested during a traffic stop he didn't see coming. The regional ICE supervisor was detained at an airport trying to board a flight to Dubai. The network is broken, but the scars remain. There's a reason this story matters beyond the headline. Power doesn't always announce itself with violence. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it wears a suit and shakes your hand. Sometimes it signs your paycheck or approves your building permit or decides which roads get paved and which ones don't. The cartel understood this. They didn't conquer Texas with bullets. They conquered it with patience, with money, with the quiet corruption of people who convinced themselves that one small compromise wouldn't matter. But compromises compound. Small betrayals become large ones, and before anyone notices, the infrastructure of democracy has been hollowed out from the inside. That's the real lesson of Operation Sunfall. Not that cartels are powerful. We knew that. Not that corruption exists. We knew that too. The lesson is that silence is the most dangerous weapon. The silence of officials who looked the other way. The silence of colleagues who suspected something was wrong but didn't speak up. The silence of a system that rewarded compliance over courage. 52 tons of methamphetamine didn't cross the border because of tunnels and trucks. It crossed because enough people decided that their comfort was worth more than their conscience. If you're still watching, I need you to do something. Tap the like button, not for me. For the agents who spent 19 months building this case. For the families who lost someone to a pill they didn't know was poison. For the whistleblowers who risked everything to expose what was happening. Comment the word Sunfall if you believe that every official who enabled this network should face the same justice as the cartel members they protected. Share this video, because the only way corruption survives is in darkness, and the only way to fight it is with light. This story is fictional. The names, the operations, the specific details are dramatized for storytelling purposes. But the threat is real. The tactics are real. The vulnerability of our institutions is real. And the next Operation Sunfall? It might be happening right now, in your state, in your city, under your nose. The question isn't whether it's possible. The question is whether we're paying attention. Because somewhere tonight, a truck is rolling down an empty highway. Its manifest says produce. Its cargo says something else entirely. And the only thing standing between that truck and your community is whether someone decides to ask questions. Keep asking, keep watching, keep demanding better. The cartels are counting on your silence. Don't give it to them.